In the heart of Kruger National Park, life follows ancient and unforgiving rules. Survival here is not optional, it is a demand imposed by nature itself. Creatures that move in packs travel as a single force, unified, disciplined, and fierce. Their bond serves as both shield and weapon. Every synchronized stride, every shared glance, broadcasts a clear message across the savannah: they stand together. This collective strength commands respect, yet it also instills fear in those watching from afar. For predators, a pack represents danger. For prey, it forms a living barrier capable of withstanding even the most ruthless hunters. Within Kruger, the pride of belonging to a group can determine whether an animal lives or dies. Yet this same confidence invites inevitable challenges. Where power exists, confrontation follows. Where unity forms, conflict emerges. Beneath the relentless sun and amid the tall grass, every encounter becomes a trial, and any clash can erupt into war without warning. Which wild animal would prevail in a battle between wild dogs and hyenas? The dry season brings waves of hot air sweeping across the savanna of Kruger National Park from the moment the sun rises. After an exhausting night searching for food, many animals have already surrendered to rest. Others, however, are just beginning their morning journey to satisfy a hunger that never relents. The African wild dog has already secured its first meal of the day without fanfare or intimidating sounds, only flawless organization. They could be compared to a wilderness troop guided by absolute discipline. Watching them eat reveals a familial harmony: no fights, no chaos. Glances alone suffice for communication. This silent empathy becomes the supreme law, a serene order in an environment dominated by fangs and claws. Yet opportunists drawn to the feast are never far behind. The atmosphere grows tense like guitar strings about to snap. Does the African wild dog retreat out of fear? No. It is prudence. Every member of the pack is invaluable. Risking a life for a single meal is not in their nature. In fact, this species obtains food more efficiently than any other predator on the savanna. Meanwhile, deep inside an ancient den, exhaustion from hunger has weakened a tired mother. Her fatigue is unmistakable. The pups seem like bottomless pits. Biologically speaking, they belong to what scientists call obligate cooperative breeders. The African wild dog is in many ways the African equivalent of the gray wolf. Here, no one is abandoned. Only the alpha pair reproduces, but raising the young is a shared responsibility. A pack may gather around 40 members with 10 to 15 adults among them. It is a balanced number enough to provide collective protection without scarcity breaking the bonds that hold the group together. Hope returns with the hunters. Unlike lions, where the dominant male eats first, adult wild dogs participate in an ancestral act, regurgitation. They bring back food, delivering the most nutritious portions directly from their own stomachs to those who stayed behind. A bond stronger than any individual force reveals itself in that gesture. Against the shadows moving across the savanna, survival becomes a collective equation. Standing ahead is the buffalo, a colossus capable of crushing any adversary with a single charge. To confront it, the pack needs more than strength, they require total agreement. Everything begins with a signal, a kind of primitive assembly. Pay attention. Do you notice that just before and during these encounters, African wild dogs begin sneezing repeatedly? This is no coincidence. Each sneeze functions as a vote, a collective biological decision. When enough votes are cast, the hunt begins. If not, the pack chooses to stay and conserve energy. A surprising form of consensus in the heart of the wild. A behavior so unusual it left many scientists astonished. But today the target changes. The group turns its attention to different prey. The wildebeest presents a far lesser challenge than the buffalo. Besides, a pack whose members weigh around 30 kilograms does not need a large quantity of meat to survive. Do not expect an explosive burst of speed like the cheetahs. Here, another strategy dominates endurance. Now it becomes clear why the African wild dog achieves hunting success rates of up to 80%. Perhaps nature did not grant them imposing bodies, but it gave them something even more powerful: unity. On this savanna pack, cohesion serves as the ultimate armor, and they know their greatest advantage perfectly well. To deploy it, they need suitable weather conditions that allow them to sustain long, exhausting chases. Life reawakens under the last rays of the sun, while the pups continue sleeping deep inside the den. The caretakers, however, already feel the emptiness in their stomachs. The digestive system of the African wild dog is remarkably fast, ideal for a strategy of striking, retreating, and advancing again. The digestive process completes within 6 to 10 hours. Unlike the spotted hyena, they do not crush large bones, which keeps their stomachs light and efficient. Eating quickly reduces the risk of other predators stealing the kill and allows them to return soon with food for the pups. Today's target is one that always lives under the savanna's constant surveillance: the warthog. Do not underestimate it. The warthog is a formidable fighter armed with sharp tusks. Its system of deep burrows functions as a genuine fortress where every entrance becomes terrain riddled with deadly traps. Tension spreads through the air. Suddenly, the chase erupts amid swirling dust. The mother warthog knows well the African wild dog is not a predator that gives up easily. Once it locks onto a target, it does not stop until it catches it. At least the warthog piglets have the protection of several adults and do not depend on a single mother alone. The warthog barely reaches 50 kilometers per hour. For the African wild dog, that speed poses no obstacle. When one individual falls, what is saved is an entire family. This is how the ruthless beauty of the savanna manifests itself without disguises or concessions. The African wild dog does not specialize in a single prey. It is an adaptable hunter, always alert to opportunities, though it rarely resorts to theft like the hyena. This drive runs through the blood of every pack member, even the youngest. Did you know that each African wild dog possesses a unique body pattern? These markings appear from birth and allow pack members to identify one another from a distance during the hunt. Guided by the alpha pair, they advance through dense brush. Concentration is absolute. The target now is the impala. Observe it closely, a true masterpiece of agility. It can leap up to 3 meters high, cover 10 meters in a single bound, and execute the characteristic pronking, a proud display of strength and vitality. But here it is not about explosive speed, it is about endurance. The real test begins. This is the prey that has earned the African wild dog the title of marathon runner of the savannah. Exhaustion reaches its limit. The African wild dog is not like the lion, which often prefers to surrender to inertia beside the river. When it chooses you, the chances of escape fall below 20%. The power of the pack is so overwhelming that even the king of the savannah thinks twice, the most skilled solitary hunter, perhaps. But facing 20 individuals coordinated with absolute discipline, the king chooses not to intervene. In this territory, individual strength dissolves before the power of unity. Remember the buffalo that the African wild dog left behind at the beginning of this story. During the dry season, these giants never stop moving in search of water, a constant movement that inevitably attracts the attention of predators. But the buffalo is a primitive force so powerful that even the lion sometimes decides not to confront it. This is the territory of Colossi, the absolute opposite of the light, disciplined army. Nearly a ton of pure muscle and a fury that knows no surrender. Under normal conditions, it remains an unattainable prey. Yet upon closer observation, an uncomfortable truth emerges: not all individuals in the herd are adults. Each African wild dog needs only between 2.5 and 5 kilograms of meat per day to survive. In that context, a calf represents far more than what is necessary. The confrontation ended sooner than expected. Perhaps the buffalo was weakened, consumed by days of relentless heat and constant thirst. The mother's hesitation is evident, as is her desperation. But that surrender was paradoxically her only option for staying alive, even if survival meant accepting the inevitable loss of her calf. Because of it, by it, and for it, everything revolves in this merciless circle of the savannah. Unlike the nearly democratic system of the African wild dog, you are now about to cross the threshold into a realm of shadows and absolute authority, the spotted hyena. Do not reduce it to the simple role of scavenger. What exists here is an inflexible hierarchy, cold and perfectly structured. A clan governed by merciless discipline and the total dominance of females. The biological reality that unfolds is astonishing. They are larger, more aggressive, and possess testosterone levels even higher than those of males. In this world, male dignity has no place. Even the lowest-ranking female stands above the strongest male. Males do not truly belong to the clan. They are temporary immigrants who must endure a life of constant trials just to be tolerated. Head lowered, submissive gestures, permanent resignation. That is the price of remaining close to the true sovereigns of the savannah. Unlike the subtle strategy of African wild dogs, the hyena has chosen a direct and brutal path to ensure its survival. Here there is no clean bite to the neck like that of the lion or leopard. Watch how they attack, rapid strikes from every angle. Legs, haunches, any vulnerable point will do. The goal is not to kill immediately, but to bleed the prey until exhaustion overcomes it, even before it understands that the end is inevitable. And to demonstrate their power, many forces of the savannah converge on the same target, the Cape buffalo. Just like African wild dogs, hyenas fix their attention on defenseless calves. Once again, a mother loses the most precious thing she has. The merciless dry season breaks the cohesion of the herd, and hyenas know how to exploit it. The smell of blood spreads and summons the scavengers. From above, the lappet-faced vulture watches patiently, but the hyena is not willing to share. It can digest everything bone skin remains, exactly like the vulture. In the end, only tiny fragments remain, which ants proceed to erase completely. Nature in silence crosses another name off the race for life. What you have before you is one of the most efficient survival machines evolution has ever created. The path of the spotted hyena begins within its own body. Its interior houses a true biological forge with extraordinarily high levels of stomach acid. Thanks to this, it can digest what would make almost any other animal recoil. Compact bones, horns, hooves. But before reaching the stomach, its primary weapon comes into play, an enormous bite that can reach up to 7,500 newtons of pressure. Yet even this survival machine carries a hidden cost. Dominant females possess a unique anatomy. A genital organ known as a pseudopenis, which is actually an elongation of the clitoris. This characteristic turns giving birth into an extreme ordeal. Cubs must pass through a long, narrow canal which dramatically raises mortality among first-time mothers. It is the price of absolute power. Female dominance within the clan demands severe sacrifices, and among females the struggle never stops. Here, authority is not born from collective agreement but from total submission. In the kingdom of the spotted hyena, the queen rules with firmness and severity. The boundary between leadership and tyranny is fragile. When oppression crosses that line, the clan responds in only one way: together. Against collective force, even the queen can become just another prey. But whoever manages to seize the crown will see her true instinct for domination emerge. Do you expect to find fairness in the distribution of food as happens among African wild dogs? Not here. The dominant female eats first, then her cubs, and the rest learn to wait. Tyranny imposes harsh rules to ensure the continuity of the next generation. This is how the throne is maintained over time. Even so, Tragedy lurks in the darkness of the dens. There is no male protection, no shared caregiving. The mother remains alone, hunter and guardian at the same time. Her absence opens the door to chaos. Cruel, painful, but inevitable. It is natural selection in its most ruthless form. The pain is left behind when the sun begins to descend. The golden hour of the hunt arrives, but today that mother has made a different decision to claim the efforts of others. And on the savannah, the most exposed prey carries an inevitable name, the cheetah. The gaze becomes rigid, concentration absolute. The body flattens against the ground, shoulders brush the earth, the head holds steady while the back arches. Everything is ready for detonation. A golden flash crosses the plain at a speed impossible to follow with the eye. Capturing prey is not the problem. Keeping it, that is a matter of life and death. The great sprinter retreats. Speed comes at a high cost, lightweight bones, non-retractable claws for gaining traction. Too fragile against jaws designed to crush bones. Here, even a minor wound can be a death sentence. And that sentence does not reach only adults. It also hangs over the cubs. Another mother watches from a distance, satisfied, almost mocking the fear of others. But the savannah is made of ironies. From the shadows emerges a dominant silhouette. The king does not need to roar. The message is clear. The one who stole is now the prey. Absolute power imposes its law upon everyone. Even so, the spotted hyena is not a creature that surrenders easily. Nearly 90% of its food comes from its own hunting. But when it decides to act as a raider, no force can stop it against solitary predators. The savannah watches in silence. Here no one is safe for long. Can you guess its name? The leopard, lord of the heights. Even when the trees no longer offer shade, it prefers to observe from above, patient and invisible. Its metabolism is slow. It does not need to confront enormous prey. The impala before it is more than enough. It only needs to avoid the sharp horns. But that calculation shatters the instant a wild cackle cuts through the air like a declaration of war. Now the real hunt begins. And this is no fragile cheetah. This is an elite fighter. Dense muscles, retractable claws, always ready for combat and climbing. In its territory, it also rules. And a king does not tolerate humiliation. A single moment of distraction proves fatal for the hyena. The raider watches helplessly from the base of the tree. Its body is built for endless pursuits across the ground, not for climbing. Losing a kill is bad enough. Losing it twice is an unacceptable affront to the Queens of Darkness. Honor must be restored, and the next target will be sufficient to achieve it. A queen can only measure herself against true kings. As the dry season devours everything in its path, the hyena is fully aware of how many lions are struggling to survive. For lionesses, hunting under these conditions becomes an almost impossible task. And that is where the cunning of the hyena reveals itself. Without the presence of the dominant male, the balance tips entirely in favor of the nocturnal raiders. It is no coincidence that during the dry season, the hunting success rate of lionesses falls below 25%. That single episode is enough to restore lost honor. The Queen of the Night has defeated the Queen of the Savannah. Today, this will be the event everyone talks about. The Savannah observes these thefts with absolute indifference. Each dry season brings new confrontations. But one of the cruelest and most dramatic chapters of this natural chronicle belongs to those who adapt best to hunger. Numerous armies driven by necessity formed in record time. Spotted hyenas always on the prowl. African wild dogs in constant vigilance. Nature granted them opposing weapons for an inevitable clash. The hyena with a jaw capable of pulverizing bones and devastating individual strength. The African wild dog with the strategy of unity and coordinated bursts of speed. And sometimes neither is truly prepared for the trial this merciless world imposes upon them. Hunger leads this mother to the feast of what may be the most powerful army on the savannah. But this time the calculation fails. The dry season suffocates everything. There is no longer room for concessions. The deadly circle closes. The spotted hyena weighs twice as much, but the cohesion of the pack is invincible. The hyena's reaction proves too slow against the unpredictable agility of its rival. Then the arbiter enters the scene. No one understands why the lion would intervene in favor of its greatest enemy. Only nature knows the answers to these wild enigmas. The mother manages to escape, but she returns carrying something worse than wounds the shame of the clan. The most aggressive members do not forget the affront. This time, the army of light skirmishers faces a battalion of heavy mercenaries. The brutality of plunder collides with absolute discipline. The African wild dog moves as a single entity, and therein lies the true secret of collective battles. Why does the smaller prevail over the giant? The answer lies in strategy encirclement from multiple fronts and attacks in rotation. Science explains it clearly. A constant rhythm of charges drives the hyena to exhaustion through overheating. A powerful heart inside a heavy body ends up becoming a burden, two sides of the same coin of survival. No creature is free from weaknesses, not even the African wild dog. And now the end of the dry season approaches. With it, the ideal setting for many battles begins to fade. The revenge of the spotted hyena must come sooner. She knows the pack of African wild dogs will not fall to hunger. They hunt better than any other predator on the savannah, but not everyone shares that advantage. For the leopard, the dry season has made the art of ambush even more difficult. Hunger pushes it dangerously close to the food sources of the African wild dogs. There were no deaths, but one of the unfortunate wild dogs suffered an injury to its leg on the savannah that amounts to a death sentence. Nothing remains hidden for long. The hyena heard the news, and she will not forget the face of the unfortunate one. If not for the presence of the entire pack, its fate would already be sealed. The hyena savors the pain of others. That is her cruelest revenge, not theft. Every individual is an essential piece. And now one of the gears has broken. While the others search for food, perhaps the hyena will leave behind a bone. A gesture of farewell, or a mockery directed at those who dared to challenge the nightmare of the savannah. The war between the African wild dog and the hyena is not merely a conflict of strength. It is a constant battle against shared hunger. Everything unfolds under the watchful gaze of the lion, the only undisputed sovereign of the savannah. But even a king's life is far from simple. When dawn brings a new day, the weight of dominion falls once again upon his shoulders. He is no longer young, nor does he stand at the peak of his splendor. He does not fight out of impulse or personal hunger. He fights for lineage, for territory, for legacy. Calm is never permanent. The guardian must face a constant threat, ambitious young males. Around 3 years of age, males are expelled from their own pride and condemned to wander in search of a kingdom of their own. Along the way, they form coalitions. Now they return as confident invaders, driven by the strength of youth and an arrogance that often surpasses experience. Ruling demands clear rules. Unlike the world of hyenas, where leadership can change without the system collapsing among lions, the fall of the dominant male is usually an irreversible sentence. When the king falls, the entire kingdom crumbles. And when a new coalition takes control, one of the cruelest chapters of the savannah begins. The new males eliminate any trace of the previous regime. Without a father to defend them and with a mother unable to oppose brute force, the cubs become victims. From a biological standpoint, infanticide serves a ruthless but effective function without nursing. The lioness enters estrus more quickly. Thus, the victors can begin imposing their own genetic legacy. The lioness does not possess the dominant strength of the male, but she possesses extraordinary intelligence. To avoid conflicts within the coalition over breeding rights, she adopts a surprising strategy. She becomes insatiable. She may demand up to 300 copulations in just 3 days. By mating with all the dominant males, she creates deliberate confusion about paternity. When the cubs are born, each male believes he is the father, and together they protect the family. The cycle repeats with almost perfect precision. Every sacrifice is a note within an ancient symphony, where balance is maintained under unbreakable laws. After the ghosts of the old empire, a new dawn rises. The lioness's warriors, reborn from the ashes, must carry on. They are tireless hunters responsible for sustaining an entire kingdom. Their bodies are genuine living weapons. Without a heavy mane, they dissipate heat efficiently, and their coats blend perfectly among the dry grasses. Why the zebra? Because it offers exceptional levels of protein and fat, enough energy to sustain the pride for days. But the risk is enormous. A single kick from its legs can shatter the jaw of any predator. Silence breaks with an explosion of force. Collective weight overwhelms the striped giant. The hunt concludes. Sacred order is restored. The male eats first. It is not privilege, it is biological necessity. He must receive the greatest energy load to preserve the strength that makes him the most solid wall against hyenas and invaders. The savannah falls silent after the storm. The rhythm of renewal begins. You stand before the moment when life emerges from darkness. The lioness guardian of hope, cubs barely a week old. This is the most fragile moment of all. The strategy is now clear. Changed ends every 3 or 4 days. Erase any trace of scent. All to prevent death in the form of the spotted hyena from finding the hiding place. At 3 weeks, the first milk teeth begin to appear. Mobility increases. And so do the dangers. Responsibility weighs upon both parents. Sometimes the lion must go out to hunt while the lioness still recovers from giving birth. And so the cycle continues, cruel, perfect, eternal. Many see the lion as an authoritarian and vain figure. But from another perspective, he is a true pillar sustaining the balance of the kingdom. At 6 weeks of age, the cubs officially enter the nursery of the savannah. This marks the beginning of allo-suckling, an extraordinary social behavior based on an almost sacred form of cooperation. Milk is shared and alliances are strengthened even among cubs who are only distantly related. After days hidden from the outside world, the young finally meet their father, the presence before which the entire savannah bows. But this territory is not merely a refuge. It is a relentless school where the hunter's instinct is forged. Here, every mistake transforms into learning. Every clumsy leap is another step toward the throne. Observing these small lives, the design of the Creator becomes evident. The mother was granted the endurance needed to protect the offspring, the bond that will make dominion possible. From choosing the hiding place to the act of sharing milk, every gesture answers to an ancient and immutable law. The wild savannah is governed by a harsh rule: survive between domination and submission. This is how this world without concessions operates. If you ever find absolute calm in some corner of this primitive fortress, there is only one possible explanation: life has already been extinguished there. Because every being that still breathes leaves its survival instinct engraved upon every inch of this land. When the dust finally settles in Kruger, the scars of battle remain visible. The packs continue moving forward, standing tall, carrying not only their strength, but also the weight of every confrontation overcome. Here, pride is not born from violence, but from resilience, from the ability to remain united against the constant chaos of wildlife. The fear these creatures inspire is not without reason. It is the result of generations that learned survival is built shoulder to shoulder, defending every territory, every cub, and every breath of life. In Kruger, a pack does not merely occupy space, it commands presence. Yet even the most powerful groups know that nothing lasts forever. Today they dominate, tomorrow they may fall. That is the silent lesson of these lands. Collective strength can tip the balance, but nature never guarantees victory. Each dawn brings a new challenge, and every step forward is a wager against the inevitable.